that you are giving a tough time to COVID-19, not only for yourself, also for your friends, relatives, and everybody around you. I'm sure all of us have a great responsibility on us towards the society. Friends, today we have the third in the series webinar being conducted by FMS Alumni Association, the body of old, graduates of FMS, all programs. The webinar today is very, very contemporary and very, very crucial for all professionals, titled Changing Dynamics of Talent Acquisition Post-COVID-19. All of us have one concern or the other related to HR after COVID-19. I'm sure that two speakers that we have today, and once again, we are very proud to say that both of them are connected to FMS. They have been a part of FMS fraternity as students, and we are very pleased and proud and privileged to have them over here because they are top of the line HR professionals today. So we have Dr. Anil Kumal Mishra, who is currently the Chief Human Resource Officer, Magicbricks.com, who has been awarded honorary doctorate by the University of Entrepreneurship and Technology, USA, jointly with CIAC Global for excellence in the field of HRM. Let me just tell you that Anil started working on his doctoral work at FMS, and he spent 2 years at FMS while he was pursuing his PhD program. He's an HR leader with over 23 years of experience across diverse industries, from manufacturing to hospitality to IT, e-commerce, insurance and mortgage, and consumer internet services. He's played multiple generalist and specialist roles within HR across sectors and worked with organizations like Fidelity as CHRO, Just Dial as CHRO, Tesco, Capgemini, Aubrey Hurtels, and Denso. Conferred with CHRO of the Year Award by Golden Tigers in Malaysia in 2016 and 100 Most Talented Global HR Leaders Award by World HRD Congress 2015. He's a regular speaker at NESCOM, NHRDN, and IIMS and other leading B schools of the country, and other leading professional forums in India and abroad. He started his academic life journey, 2 years full-time master's degree in industrial relations and personal management, way back in 93-95. Welcome, Anil, to this forum of your alma mater. And of course, Nidhi, this is the first lady speaker that we are getting on our webinars in the series. So a special welcome to Nidhi. Also special welcome because she is speaking right now from Australia. So first international speaker to start with. So Nidhi graduated from FMS in 2008. Originally from Delhi, she's now based out of Sydney, Australia. I hope all is well in Australia, Nidhi, and you are looked after by them. She started her career with financial services in the HR operations Six Sigma team, and then joined Adobe, where she recently completed 10 years of service. Congratulations, she's a certified MBTI, Strength Finder, and 360 coach. She has a wealth of experience across business partnership, employee relations, shared services, and talent development in both India and APAC region. Her current role spans across areas of organization design, organizational effectiveness, talent management, and leadership effectiveness. She's known for her thoughtful, risk-taking leadership and deep business knowledge, which allows her to maximize outcomes for everyone. Wonderfully, she is driven by her motto, "Others' success is my success." Congratulations, Nidhi, and welcome to your alma mater forum. We are proud to have both of you this webinar. And I'm sure that all the questions that our youngsters have in their mind related to HR issues, you will be able to resolve most of them. Thank you very much for joining. Over to Zuhaib. Zuhaib is going to host the session. Zuhaib is FMS 2009, and right now he is CEO of Valedra, Apeejay Stya and Svran group. He will be assisted by Nitin Gupta and Dheeraj Jain, moderators for the session. And we are likely to have a few faculty members and few of very senior alums join this particular webinar. Over to Zuhaib. Please take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for welcoming both our speakers for the day. Dr. Anil, Ms. Nidhi, welcome to FMS webinars. This is the third webinar we are doing under the guidance of Professor Singla. The first two we had focused on startups and businesses, and we had got two doyen VCs to join in. Both of them, as you are, were FMS alumni. So welcome back to FMS in a virtual manner. Happy to have both of you here. We have a lot of people who have joined in. Welcome to all of you as well. We have Dr. Anil Misra and Ms. Nidhi Chopra, both experts from HR field. And we have received a lot of questions from you already. But then even during the midst, if you want us to ask questions, what you can do is you can click on the Q&A tab and you can type in your questions. We will try to take in as many questions as possible. With this, we kick off our third webinar in this series. Dr. Anil, let's start with you. Since you have had a very long checkered career, we would want to understand how did you go about this and how did you decide on which organization to work with? And if you can give us a blueprint of your career, it will help us understand, because a lot of our alumni and a lot of our students, current students, have also joined in on this call. Over to you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Zuhaib. And thanks a lot, Singla sir, for making me feel like a celebrity with that wonderful intro. And just to start, I think God has been very kind. It's been 22 glorious years of practicing HR. Very, very fortunate to start my career with manufacturing setup. Worked with organizations like Denso. And the realization and the takeaway there was, if you really want to understand manufacturing practices like 5S, Kanban, TPM, TQM, then there cannot be a better sector than manufacturing. Then my next sector was hospitality. Never planned it. Was not a hotel management graduate, but an opportunity to work with the world's top 4 hotel in the as per Condé Nast. I'm referring to Oberoi Rajvilas. That's in Jaipur. So fantastic experience there. And the big takeaway there was, if you really want to understand customer centricity as a competency, there cannot be better sector than hospitality. Unlike other manufacturing sector, you do not have the luxury of product life cycle. If a guest is happy, you get the feedback right then and there. Fantastic experience. Then moved to IT services. That used to be Patni Computers, which is Capgemini right now. So interestingly, all the HR folks, if you talk about employee engagement, some of the best practices in HR, then we used to refer to IT services setups. And I'm talking about way back in 2002, 2003. And that still continues. So they were the pioneers in that practice. So fantastic experience again. Then moved to Tesco. Again, real estate sector. Want to understand how the supply chain business process looks like and how organizations are transferring technology in the hands of customers. Then you must join e-commerce or let's say, consumer internet sector or specifically retail sector for that purpose. From there, my first assignment was with the first assignment of CHRO was Just Dial. They went public, and that's when the promoters, they thought that it's time for us to hire, and that's how I joined them. Interesting again setup. Very few companies who are profit making, who are who had a very humble beginning, but right now doing really, really well. Managing multiple stakeholders, that too promoter-led setup, that was the key takeaway there. And of course, after that, Fortune 500 company Fidelity happened. Completely amazed the way the entire land records are digitized. If you want, 70 years, 80 years land record, how each of the county in the US would have digitized and privatized land records. That was a fantastic success story and great learning. Cut to right now, working for a group which is close to 180-year-old in India, popularly called Times of India Group. But mine is a separate P&L, and we consider ourselves as a tech company in consumer internet sector, catering to real estate needs of all our customers. So phenomenal, great learning experience across sectors, very, very fortunate. But one thing that remained constant throughout the sector is, you got to deal with people. That has not changed. Precisely the objective of, or the purpose of our existence across sectors has been, how do we attract best of the talent? If you're successful in attracting best of the talent, how do you retain them? And if you have retained them, what it takes to take care of their career aspiration in terms of providing them competency enhancement measures through learning and development opportunity. So fundamentally, this is the framework. But yeah, there are peripheral stuff like, culture, strengthening organization culture, having different contemporary people practices, people policies, so that, you enable people to give their best. That remained constant. So from that standpoint, very, very fortunate, very, very satisfied with what, I have got an opportunity to learn in all these different sectors.
And we are very, very glad to have you amongst us today. As you were discussing before everybody logged in, we have a lot of questions and questions are still coming in from the participants. Nidhi, if we move on to you, how has been your experience, and especially since you first worked in India and then you moved to Australia, how have been the two experiences for you? We know that you are an up and coming leader in HR. So would want to know your perspective on what is happening and how do you see your career moves?
Thank you, Zuhaib, for the opportunity. And again, thanks, Singla sir and the whole team. It's a pleasure to be on a panel with Dr. Mishra as well. For me personally, I have spent a huge chunk, in fact, 90% of my career with Adobe, which has been great. In the hindsight, I see that was the best decision I made. I remember my college days when human resources wasn't a very popular subject in FMS. We were about 2 or 3 of us who wanted to pursue. We coaxed professors to launch the subject just so that we could do our post-graduation in HR. And I entered financial services sector, again, forcing in the placement, getting into a Six Sigma team and telling them that I'll only do HR work, I'll only do HR projects, nothing else. So almost learned to negotiate right from the beginning to say you need to follow your passion and things will follow from there on. And that helped. I learned a lot around operations and processes early on in my career in the financial services ICICI Prudential organization, and then landed in Adobe, where in the last 10 years, I've changed 7 roles. It's been really exciting. Adobe has moved from a product-based company to a subscription-based model. So I've seen that change. I've witnessed that, which was a great journey. We received a lot of feedback and I would say eyes in the market when we made that shift. So managing that change and being a part of the people resources team or employee experience, as we call it, was great, because that means we saw the talent evolving, we saw the skill set evolving, we had to enable a lot of leaders. And I'd concur with Dr. Mishra to say, when you see shifts in companies, customer experience, where it is the primary factor, that is the best companies to work for. Some of the companies where you see customer first, that's the shift we saw Adobe making. And since then, it's been exciting. I would also say I've been fortunate at Adobe, where I've had leaders and we've been part of teams where we've not hesitated to innovate. We were the first ones to do away with performance evaluation and do check-in as a process. That journey again started in 2012, where I was part of the India team, and that's where we broke the news on Economic Times. So it was again an exciting career journey there to manage that change. So when I summarize my career, I say it's been full of change, and I've been someone who's been fortunate that I've not said no to it. And that's how Australia happened. So when I was in India, that's the time when we again experimented with shared services in Adobe, and we launched our shared services team. And I got an opportunity to lead employee relations for JPAC. And from there on, I got the opportunity to move to Australia. And it's been amazing again that in like I said, I've had 7 roles from employee relations to again back to business partnership now. In the markets, I've definitely seen a change. APAC as a region, we've had 7 countries, and these are very diverse countries. Some are very employer friendly, some are very employee friendly. So as an employee relations professional, it's been again very rich experience of managing the engagement of employees, managing the performance and talent development for people. We've also been fortunate to evolve our organization because in the last 5 years, Adobe has ventured into new space, which is digital marketing or digital experience. So that's another place where we've had to hire new talent, have to have a new organization design to incorporate for new skill sets. So overall, I feel that I've been very fortunate to be part of this whole change journey.
Nidhi, so if I pick up one thread, it has been change from your conversation. And in fact, one of the first questions which we have from Mr. Manish Kulhari relates to the same. So Manish wants to understand is how do you see change affecting HR, and how do you see HR driving the change in the current scenario, and what do you feel will happen in the next 1 to 2 years post-COVID?
Sure. Thanks, Manish, for the question. For me, I think HR plays a very important role when it comes to partnership with business in managing this change. I treat HR as a part of business, not just as its a secondary organization. It is pretty much a part of business leaders' business journey. These are times which are unpredictable. And as part of any change, human resources, this is a time where people are impacted. This is a time where we need to enable our leaders in terms of being more empathetic, and employees come first. We've seen almost a shift in organizations to make this transition where mental well-being of people is most important. So as an HR professional, I think it's not just enabling people to look after each other, it is also enabling systems and processes. 2 months back when the COVID pandemic started and organizations had to make the virtual shift, while I'm on maternity leave, I could easily see how Adobe was enabling people. We had to launch new programs to enable our leaders to manage remote working. As an HR, it's very important. You are enabler catalyst in a way to say, how do you make sure managers are equipped to manage this new workforce? How do you make sure people are still able to collaborate and people are able to come together and business goals are met? In this new scenario, in the next 1 to 2 years, I don't think we can predict what will happen, but we can only say that it will be a constant journey where we'll continue to evolve. There is no one size fits all. Flexibility doesn't mean that now everyone will start working from home. That's the new norm. It's definitely the new thing right now, given everyone's safety. But I'm sure that organizations will evolve, and that's where HR will play a key role in terms of processes and people to enable them and equip them.
Thank you, Nidhi. We also agree with you on a lot of these points. HR is obviously the prime enabler now for a lot of organizations. In fact, HR has become the sort of essentials, so as to say, in e-commerce or e-retail terms. These terms are being floated around these days. Dr. Anil Misra, moving on to you. You have obviously had a long career from manufacturing to hospitality, tech, and in this long career, you have seen these economic as well as financial as well as other kind of changes happening at a very fast pace. From your experience, how do you think talent acquisition will change in the post-COVID world?
Yeah, interesting question again. Thanks for that, Zuhaib.
And by the way, this is from Manish Gupta again.
Thanks, thanks, Manish, for that question. I think whether it's a hiring freeze or hiring increase or hiring as usual, I think what would decide your relation with potential hires is how you treat your current or your existing people, your existing talent. That's very, very important. And yeah, I would agree with Nidhi when she said that, yeah, if you look at talent acquisition specifically as a function, then, everything is going to be virtual going forward. Probably hiring managers who were much more comfortable meeting candidates one-on-one would now think twice, at least in the short term or in the mid-term. And definitely then, then after that, that would become some sort of an habit. So everything would be moving to virtual, to online assessments, to even the induction processes, I strongly believe would be digital. You don't need to physically submit your hard copy of certificates, testimonials, and all of that stuff. Before exactly your onboarding process starts, organizations would insist that you send across those documents and things like that.
Sure.
I guess let me also divide the entire scenario into 3 forms. Number one, let's say how the scenario would change for campus hiring, which is one more significant source for us. I guess organizations will make an impact to be virtually present in campuses. Physically might be a little challenging in the initial days. Then, yeah, everybody talks about the gig economy. Globally, if you look at it, it's a $250 billion industry. And thankfully in India, most of the CHROs, CEOs, when they were asked, 70% of them, the data says that, they are using gig workers today. And the prediction is there would be another 6 million gig workers joining Indian workforce in the next 2 years. Wow. So from that standpoint, a lot of changes, a lot of excitement are going to happen specifically in talent acquisition space.
But do you think that this will also mean that talent retention will also change? Do you think that, it will mean that employees would be promoted more in the next 1 to 2 years? And will internal hiring and competency development actually be at the forefront and talent acquisition might take a backseat?
Okay, let me try and create some controversy here.
Sure.
Purely for
always good to have controversy.
Purely for academic purpose. How many of us truly believe that people are an organization's biggest asset? I would tend to believe that normally that's how we were grown, that's how we were taught, and everybody says, okay, organization has multiple resources, and out of that, your people are your greatest asset. In the current scenario, when you realize what's happening around you, then you tend to probably change that statement. You say that not necessarily all people, but good people who are agile, who are willing to change, who are in tune with the organization's culture, they would become very, very significant in the entire scheme of things for future. And definitely organizations were making significant interventions to retain your top talent, but that would become much more serious even in the time to come. And see, it is inevitable. You cannot, even if you want, not necessarily all organizations are blessed with, their P&L, they're blessed with, the financial, healthy kind of a scenario right now. And if it is inevitable to go for, probably some sort of a retrenchment or layoffs, which is happening across sectors right now, unfortunately, if that is what is going to be the norm during this time, then definitely organizations would have some filter to identify who are your top talent. And there would be a comparison. And more efforts would be towards how do we retain those people. And hence, going back to your original question, how and what it takes to make them feel motivated, what it takes to, take care of their competency enhancement, develop a, fast track career trajectory for them, all these things will come into picture.
I just want to add to Zuhaib, what Dr. Mishra was saying. I think it's always a combination of both ends. One is top talent retention, and the other is being fair assessment of performance management as well. So organizations need to move on both the spectrums, like he rightly said. I think when these kind of times come, when organizations are forced to think through efficiencies, it forces them to think which are the places they want to invest more in terms of people, work, roles, capabilities. And that starts to define where retention happens, in what pockets, what segments of the business. So I think it's not just top talent retention, it'll also be the question to say if people are not performing, what are some of the hard measures the organizations will have to take while remaining sympathetic and empathetic about employees and the situation and remaining fair, just so that we are bringing efficiencies and we are being fair to people.
Nidhi, what do you think, what would be your suggestion to HR teams when they are faced with the condition that they have to let go of people? How should they go about it?
So for me, I think this is definitely a different time, but no different from how we work. Because at the times when you have to make business decision, everything is led by what's the goal of the business? What are we trying to achieve as a business, as a company? And that defines where do we make the investments, like I said. And that's from there on, you start to look at roles in which you want to make the decisions and the hard decision. At the end of the day, my suggestion is when we make those hard calls as HR individuals and we participate with business and partner with business, it's more often than not a business call, and we enable our leaders to remain fair. We enable our leaders to remain genuine to those employees and make sure that these decisions are not taken lightly. Because at the end of the day, it's an individual that is being impacted, and the organizations need to be fair in that process.
Thank you, Nidhi. Anil, what is your take on this? Because we have been seeing examples right from, say, Airbnb as to how they are going about the process to at an extreme end to Uber at the other end. And I'm pretty sure that you have also been talking to a lot of friends in the HR fraternity. Sure. So your thoughts on the same?
Yeah, couldn't agree more to what Nidhi said. You got to be, as an organization, because it impacts a lot of careers, you got to be fair, you got to be transparent, and you need to be communicating, rather in certain instances over communicating, and do that in a timely manner. Then people understand that these are unprecedented times, and not necessarily everybody would have a great time how organizations used to operate in the past. But for me, two realization right now. There is I see people are a little reluctant if while giving a hard message to some of the people. So from that standpoint, probably my emotional maturity, or probably my ability to differentiate my personal and professional roles, that I feel we could definitely strengthen. Number two, and most important is, it's bound to happen, anxiety, anger, frustration, that is bound to happen. And hence, there is a concept which is emerging, very, very old concept, but, in corporate, we call it, catharsis. So allowing people to, take out their suppressed feeling is good for their mental health. That's one school of thought. Allowing people, and how do you actually, coach, counsel, and, probably develop your people managers professionally? How do I allow people, okay, let there be, some sort of a anger, let there be some sort of a emotional outburst, that's fine. But, there is a very thin line. If I know how to manage it, it's fine. Otherwise, it runs the risk of getting into a negativity kind of an organization culture. But allowing people to vent it out, and there are multiple organizations I'm aware of who have created multiple forums also. Otherwise, the outcome is, in social media, because everybody has got access, then, there would be much more negativity from organization culture, organization branding standpoint.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Mishra, for the same. Now we have one question related to, actually, three people have asked this question. Mr. Rajiv Goyal, Mr. Asit Kharche, and Mr. Rohitash Huria. I'll be rephrasing their question because it's related to the same sub-theme. Question is work from home here to stay? And how do you see the companies moving in this direction? And if you feel that work from home is here to stay, will it lead to more jobs moving to India? Do Indians have a higher opportunity to do global jobs? Or do you see within India, they moving to tier 1 and tier 2 cities? So we'll first go to Dr. Anil Misra for the same. In fact, we also have one senior alum from 1973 batch, Mr. Alok Goyal, 1971 to 1973 batch. He also has a similar question. Dr. Anil, over to you.
Yeah. So for me, see, it's not a new concept. We have been allowing across sectors. There was a policy work from home and all of that, but in difficult time, yeah, everybody has realized that even support functions like HRs and admin and support functions like let's say up to an extent marketing and contact center, they can also add significant value. And the productivity is definitely, it was under doubt, but everybody realized that work from home is equally productive, irrespective of whether you are in the front of the house or in the back of the house. Broadly for future, I look at STOP. STOP is the short form of, let's say, we need to maintain social distancing. S for social distancing. T for your travel time, your commuting time. And we all know that in India, be it Bangalore, be it Delhi or any city for that matter, by and large, 25 to 30% of our time we spend in commuting. So in STOP, the T is for commuting, the travel time. O is for the overall office space occupancy. Even if you are diversifying, growing, then probably you do not need to have as many offices as you have, as you used to have in the past. From that standpoint, also work from home is definitely going to help. And fourth, you see there are in social media multiple postings, and people say that, hey, I can see Himalayas from Jalandhar and plenty of other things. So P is for pollution. So typically cities like Delhi, which 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, normally you would see severe pollution. Work from home would definitely contribute from that standpoint. So it's a win-win proposition for both the category of people. And so if that is what it is, why not? Let's go ahead and further promote it, even for support functions.
Nidhi, what's your take on this? Do you see more jobs going to India? Do you see, in India, more jobs going to tier 1, tier 2 cities as companies try to, lose their fat and become more competitive?
So I think the time has definitely challenged and broken some myths around work from home. A lot of times companies used to shy away from work from home, saying, it does not lead to collaboration. It's not the most effective, etc. And that has been challenged in this time. In terms of whether more jobs will move to India, I think the jobs would be where the talent is. And with this broken myth, I think companies would be more open to be more to a greater set of diverse talent, and location may not be the primary criteria of hiring. However, business would lead those decisions again, but companies have to invest in a lot of things before a whole shift to work from home happens. An example is infrastructure. Different countries have different sort of infrastructure. In Australia, we are blessed to have a great internet connectivity, whereas we have employees in Australia who live in the suburbs where you may not have internet and Wi-Fi as strong as what is in the cities. So how are we making sure that there is enough connectivity? People are also being accountable for infrastructure. Organizations are also accountable for worker safety. What does it mean when it comes to work from home? How does that all unfold? If there is a workplace injury at work, there is a different scenario versus if it happens for work from home. How are we being liable and making sure it's a safe and secure work from home environment? And then flexibility is to everyone's to own. Work from home is not a new, like Dr. Mishra said. We've always had that at Adobe. We've had flexible schedules. People are allowed, they work with their managers to work out an arrangement that works best for them. But flexible is to each of the person. This scenario has forced everyone to work from home, and that may not be the best for everyone. I take my personal example. As a mother to 2 young kids, work from home is the last thing I want. I'm the least productive then. So I would dread this situation given a choice. So this situation has forced and tested everyone's limits. So I won't say that it's a shift that will be a complete shift for all organizations. I feel that it has opened the mind of a lot of professionals and it has broken myths. So companies will be more open to it, and where it works, I think people would explore it more.
Just
Dr. please go ahead.
More countries definitely are going towards nationalistic sentiment right now. So what it means is definitely I see at least in the near future, there would be more focus around hiring locals. Yeah. But having said that, if it is a connected world where, and ultimately talent would be the winner, and then cross-boundary collaboration, and having best of the talent in a virtual kind of a setup is also not something we can rule out. But in the immediate future, definitely organizations need to cater to the nationalistic interest.
Sure. Dr. Ray, in fact, you answered one of the questions from Harsh Kumar Luna on the very same topic. And Harsh also wants to understand as to what would be your advice for middle management who are thinking of moving abroad for roles. What should be they doing right now? How should they be reskilling themselves? Should they be focusing, doubling down on India? What is your advice?
I don't see any reason, but before that, I'm a little curious to know why middle management is keen to get into an on-site assignment. Probably Nidhi would connect better. Is it for money? That anyhow in India it's quite competitive if you look at it. If it is for better opportunity, yeah, look at mass exodus from Silicon Valley to when there is a startup boom happening in Bangalore, people were going at a 50% lesser salary. So I think at this stage, it's better to go for cross skilling and reskilling and focus, build it in India, because it's a tremendous opportunity we are going to get specifically in this current scenario. And unless and until you are 100% convinced why you want to move abroad and take up an on-site assignment, I would strongly recommend that because of the restrictions, visa restrictions in US and multiple other things, the opportunities are also going to be quite confined to fewer numbers. But there is a huge opportunity in India, and hence, from timing standpoint, my personal preference would be to stick to India for another 2 and 3 years and be party to the entire transformation.
Thank you, Dr. Anil. Nidhi, we have one more question for you. Kumar Bhaskar has asked this on the Q&A panel. He wants to understand that both of you actually spoke about gig economy, and Dr. Mishra spoke about stop as a mantra right now. So in that case, if somebody is going for virtual interviews, like the way we are having this webinar, then obviously the body dynamics and the body language, etc., can't be shown in a virtual interview. What would be your recommendations to people who will be going for virtual interviews now?
Sure. So I think first and foremost, as this is going to be the new norm, so let's be comfortable with it, and let's not feel that this is the first thing an interviewer would be or an interviewer is really exposed to as well. So they are experiencing it the same way as a candidate would be. So I think your authenticity matters in virtual environment, because that shows, while everything else is not showing. Your authenticity is the first thing that shows up, because you have to make sure that you go prepared. You've tested technology. You would have enough opportunity with a talent partner or a recruiter to understand what technology they're working on. Can you test it before? Have you found a quiet space? Do you have it or do you not have it? At least be specific about it, because it's not always possible for everyone to have an office space in their home. So if you don't have, I think it's better to vocalize it and share it. Find a time that is suitable to you as well and convenient to you. Don't feel that companies always have, the time they have suggested for the interview is your only time. It's a talent market. Organizations need you as much as you need the organization. So let's make sure that, again, we're being authentic and genuine and saying, hey, this is a more convenient time. I'll be able to find a quiet space. I can sit, focus on the interview, and I'll have no distractions. And make sure that you are engaging with the person. If you have technological issues, make sure you call it out. Don't grapple with it or don't get anxious. Technology is nobody's friend. It always fails. It is always, Murphy's law always happen. So again, it's okay. It is okay as long as you call it out and give yourself the pauses and the breaks that you need. Make sure that your space is prepared. You have water next to you. Anything that you'd need during the interview, you've got that around you, because there's no physical space where you'd be able to move around. The other piece is there's a style to interview. A lot of people like, I've seen certain, especially hiring developers, engineers, we've seen they like to whiteboard, and now you don't have the opportunity to whiteboard or draw it out for the person. So you may want to go prepared with certain things. You may have prepared a slide. A lot of times organizations, I think, will now be testing case scenarios, case studies, because we don't have the opportunity to really meet the person probably, and they may be getting hired without even a face-to-face meeting. So organizations are going to put you in scenarios and test you how you respond to it. So it's good you go prepared into it, prepare your virtual material that you can provide it to the talent partner early on, get to know your interviewer, look at their LinkedIn profile. I think those are a few things you can do so that you feel you know your space when you sit in front of that laptop.
Thank you, Nidhi. Hopefully, Kumar, you will have a much better idea as to what needs to be done. Dr. Anil, this question is for you from Mr. Deepak Jain. He wants to understand how are organizations coping up with the current challenges. And more specifically, he wants to understand that given a choice between cutting salaries across board and trying to retain people, and or deciding which all people will not be required at all and letting them go so that the rest survives and the organization survives, what all are you thinking and what all are you seeing otherwise across the world?
Sure. Again, a great question. Thanks, Deepak, for asking that. See, the way I look at things is, every organizations currently are going through 3 different phases. Number one, what's top on their agenda is how do we survive in this difficult time? And then number 2 is, if we are successful in surviving, then what and how we will recover from this losses that we might have incurred in the last 2 quarters or 3 quarters. Third thing is, how do we excel and go back to double-digit growth, 50% year-on-year growth, and those kind of stuff. Now, in the first scheme of thing, the first part is how do we survive? And I'm aware that most of these organizations, and normally the startup kind of a setup, you would see that since there is a pressure on the cash flow, what organizations have done is, normally during January and February, organizations would finalize their annual operating plan. So organizations were done with that, and then they got hit with this COVID-19, so they had to revisit and reprioritize their budgets and expense and other stuffs. So that is one way of cutting down on the cost or the kind of spends that you were planning earlier. Second thing is, during this time of the year, most of the organizations in India at least would go and announce their annual increments. So most of the organizations, there are few exceptions, but most of the organizations have deferred their increment cycle. So suppose it used to be effective, the increments were effective from 1st of April, they have pushed it by 2 quarters. So the new increment percentage, if at all any, that would be effective from 1st of October. That's one more way of cutting down on your spends. Number 3 is also there was a choice that was in front of the different sectors of people in organizations, different category of people in an organization. Some organizations took a deliberate call. Let's say leadership members voluntarily contributed and said that, hey, I will go for 30% of pay cut. Some of the leaders said, 100%. So that was in the larger good intent, so that there is least impact on the job losses. So that is also one more strategy, which organizations have adopted. And all of that started with a good intent that, hey, this is for a temporary period only. Once we get back to normalcy, then probably these things will be reversed back. And I think, most of the leaders across sectors, they have unanimously agreed. And I felt that is one great strategy to take care of your rest of colleagues who were, working along with you, and keeping in mind how an organization can have least impact on the job loss, that part.
Dr. Anil, since we are talking about, Nidhi, please go ahead.
Sorry, just to add, I think one other thing that is becoming popular that I'm seeing, at least in this side of the world, is job sharing. So instead of impacting multiple employees, how do you effectively allow them to share jobs so that you're able to make sure that 2 people are employed and doing the same job instead of 1. Yes, of course, it requires a lot of system and preparation again, but a lot of organizations are adopting that. On the other hand, a lot of organizations are also taking flexible working to part-time work. Like if it allows to people are willingly, voluntarily doing part-time instead of full-time roles. That again allows them to secure the job, whereas an organization can then employ 2 people, or instead of having 1 full-time employee, could have a part-time employee. So even workforce is evolving and participating with organizations in solving this.
These are difficult questions, and we understand that different organizations will be taking their own paths. Nidhi, a question to you from Dr. Sudhir Batra. He wants to understand as to what will be the change in employer-employee power dynamism post COVID-19, because we are, as Dr. Anil Misra was also saying the same, that different organizations are taking different routes. Some of them, how they treat their current employees will make sure that talent acquisition changes according to the same. What is your take on this employer-employee power dynamism change in post-COVID-19?
I first struggle to understand the power dynamism, because probably I've been too fortunate to be part of an organization where this kind of a culture doesn't exist. So I do struggle with that term. Because for me, I think it's again a two-way market. Organizations need talent and talent needs organization. And something that we said in the very beginning, it's about if you're a great performer, if you're a good performer, organizations will go out of the way to retain and create opportunities of career growth. So I think it's again both ways. In terms of would anything change from post-COVID-19 in terms of power dynamics? I think it will just lead to more openness across both the ends. To say, I could probably say I was effective as a flexible worker, I was effective as a remote worker as I am in the office. So I may have more say, and I may have proven it to my employer to get that benefit more. And it also may be to say, hey, my talent doesn't need for me to come and work in the office. So those kind of conversations will become more important. It'll lead to probably much more clearer goal setting, because if you're talking about remote workers, virtual workers, you are not seeing performance on the job in terms of physical performance and in proximity. So it's very important that managers would need to set clear goals, would need to have clear KPIs to hold people accountable. So I think we would see more and more organizations adopting clearer measures, clearer goal setting, more feedback mechanisms, probably a little bit more shift to documentation, just so that there is transparency and there's more conversation in the processes that come through. So that's how I feel the dynamics would be. It's more towards the working arrangements than power is what I feel.
Okay, Dr. Anil, picking up from what we were discussing earlier, in fact, Aishwarya Malik also has a question on the same. And wants to understand how will the performance management systems, how will the performance evaluation systems change now? Because if you are saying that at least in the service sectors, a lot of people will start working from home, might not happen that much in the manufacturing sector. And what do you think, how is HR as a function, how is HR as a department going to change because of the current massive change we are going through?
Yeah, so interesting question. Typically, if you look at performance management process, to me, it's a two-way communication and commitment building process. Now, what it means is, what is that we expect our colleagues to drive? So it used to be probably in certain setups, once a year kind of a ritual or twice a year. Now I see definitely there would be more demand for quarterly performance targets, setting quarterly performance targets. Now, during my dad's time, they used to talk about CCR, confidential character reporting, to right now, we talk about 90-degree, 360-degree kind of a feedback system, to, Dr. Norton and Kaplan introduced a balanced scorecard, to probably we would see a steering wheel kind of, OKR or, KRA setting process, which would be cascaded into very, very short term. Every quarterly, people would be tracking where do you also reward and recognitions attached to that. And when we talk that there is no concept of bell curve right now, and let's not go for it, that's not useful, then, in the new scheme of things, probably I would see more and more of those concepts emerging. But ultimately, what would be in demand still would be, how can I move from my feeling-based assessments to fact-based assessment? Now, am I somebody who is viewed as transparent and objective while giving feedback? Do I do that in a timely manner? These are some of the things, that would be actually the deciding factor.
And how would you think about motivation? How would employee motivation change, and what all organizations will be doing in a new manner so as to keep the employees engaged? Same question is from Sai Kaushik Chanupati for Dr. Anil Misra.
Yeah, motivation, I think, it's also a very, very difficult and complicated way of, you don't know what is the expectation, what is the need. So everybody has got different set of expectations and different set of needs. But if I have to generalize, then, I think the role is what is going to keep those people excited. So understanding, basis my aspiration, basis my strengths, am I as an organization able to get a job which would excite an individual would be the first thing. Then am I transparent, objective and fair in giving feedback and doing that in a timely manner and avoiding, any kind of a surprises. Now, to what extent me as a boss can walk an extra mile to take care of your career aspiration, your competency enhancement needs, would also be deciding, how good I am as a manager. And ultimately, of course, the culture, the policies and other enablers would also play a significant role in motivating people.
Sure. Thank you. I think a very clear answer, and our audience would have been enriched by the same. Nidhi, two questions for you. One is, what is your advice to the employees today, both from startup and established MNCs, as to for their career paths, career trajectories, how should they go about it? And next question is related to this, is how should they be reskilling themselves? How should they be upskilling themselves?
I'll try my best, Zohaib, in terms of, I think it goes back to what your internal aspiration is. I think each employee, I feel, is accountable to have conversations with their leaders. I think each of us as an employee should take an initiative to talk to our managers around what is our long-term aspiration, where our strengths are. I think we need to find our mentors and coaches, whether it's inside our organizations or outside, because that's one thing you really benefit from when you talk to a third person who's got a very objective view to your situation, who's probably not in your shoes or not in the shoes of your organization. So when it comes to people preparing themselves for careers, preparing themselves for a career shift, it always helps to have a mentor outside of the organization, somebody you can talk to objectively. Personally, I have benefited from that, and that's why I share that. In terms of reskilling or upskilling, I think it's change that is driving every organization. We are in times where skill set is evolving. Learnability is the key. You can't pin down on one course or an education or a certification to say this is what is the mantra for all success. You have to see the direction of your organization and your own direction. And that's where you learn both on the job and then you learn outside of the job through certain courses, etc. So it's important that you keep yourself open to learning, and you don't have biases around, oh, that course is not going to help me, or this conversation is not of any help, or this individual's not got the skill set. So you really need to be absorbing a lot in terms of your conversations and learning. And that's what my advice would be for reskilling and upskilling, instead of saying, here's your course, you go and do it.
Sure, of course. Dr. Anil, we have one question from Mr. Shekhar Venkat. He wants to, and I will be basically rephrasing this question because a lot of other people, Subhash Kwalifu, Aditi Mahajan, also have questions around the same. Question relates to remote working. Question relates to, do you think retired, senior corporate professionals, semi-retired people would be coming back to the workforce now? Do you think that this will lead to more diversity coming into the organizations? Do you think more women will be coming back into the workforce? What is your take on this? And they would want to understand both in terms of manufacturing as well as service sectors.
This is sector agnostic, and my answer is definitely yes. Reason being, if you try and understand somebody who is 20 plus years of experience, 25 plus years of experience in industry are already sitting at a relatively higher comp bracket. Now, and they also have some other aspirations. Okay, been there, done that, let me start something on my own. That is, at least in India, we are seeing the trend going higher. So what it means is, but you cannot take out that years of experience from them. And these people are available as gig workers, irrespective of gender, irrespective of function, irrespective of geographical spread. That's one trend. Second trend, if you talk about Gen X and Gen Yers, they need, on the contrary, more of flexibility. They are not married to any specific one organization. Hey, I'm a subject matter expert. I want to probably give me that flexibility. I can operate from the beaches of Goa also. But then so long as I'm able to fulfill your goals and achieve those targets, that should be good enough. And that gives me flexibility. So long story cut short, answer is definitely yes. And retired people, people with multiple diverse background, that is definitely going to be. And that's how when I say there would be an addition of another 6 million gig workers in India in the next 2 years, these are the category of people who are likely to join this gig economy in the next 2 years.
Thank you, Anil. Nidhi, 3 questions for you back to back. So what are companies doing in Australia on L&D budgets? How do you feel that HR will improve via tech? And how are companies supporting their employees during COVID-19 in Australia?
Okay, so let me try and do justice to all. So remind me if I forget. Yeah, if I forget any. I think this is, I would say, a situation which has created a great opportunity for learning and development teams, because it has all of a sudden created a wider outreach for an L&D professional, because now virtual platforms like these allow us to reach larger set of people. Yes, you need to, of course, make those programs more effective, but this has definitely allowed us to also go multiple countries. In organizations which were doing more face-to-face learning, I think this allows them now to do the same program virtually and gives them economies of scale. So more people would be adopting this and more people will get open to it. Like Dr. Mishra in the initial segment also mentioned, onboarding is becoming virtual. A lot of organizations were on that path already, and more so will take that. Your enablement will become virtual. So in terms of L&D budget, I think it's not that there'll be any cut down or increase. I think there's a shift in the way L&D gets delivered, and people would absorb knowledge and learning. It also allows us to be more data driven, I would say, because wherever technology comes, you're able to get more data, create more personalized content, and create, say, content which I could choose at a time which is feasible for me, because we'd have to be flexible to our workforce, because it may not be possible for everyone to join a learning program or a meeting, which means we'll have to record it. We'll have to make platforms where people can access it at any time as per their convenience. So I hope that answers the first question.
What about employee engagement in Australia?
When you say employee engagement in Australia,
in terms of how companies supporting their employees during COVID-19 situation currently.
So I think across the world, and particularly here, I think there is a joint effort by not just the companies, but also government. I would really call out the Australian government here in creating or enabling organizations to support employees. Like here, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the term, the Prime Minister launched a job seeker and a job keeper program. And that has allowed companies to keep employees. For those who were financially impacted, the companies could get a grant from the government to pay employees a certain minimum wages. And for those who lost job, could actually apply for a minimum wage to the government. So I would say that we've been fortunate to be in a country where the government has been really supportive in the programs. Other than that, a lot of companies have been trying a lot of programs. Like I've seen some best practices where organizations have given employees COVID leave. People have been given some unpaid leave instead of losing a job. or people have been given, in fact, ability to take, if they are caring for someone who's COVID impacted, companies have supported them to go on leave. Personally, childcare has been made free in Australia for up until June end, so I don't have to pay for childcare, and that was more a decision so that people who are in essential services can still go to work while their children are being taken care of. So it's a combined effort, I would say, in Australia at least, between government and organizations. And a lot of organizations have come forward to launch projects to enable, Adobe being one of them, to work with government to enable some of these platforms.
Sure. And one question, and I'll take Dr. Mishra's inputs on this as well. How do you think tech can disrupt HR, or how can tech help HR improve? Which pieces do you think are coming to your mind, which are broken currently?
Yeah, I think, if you talk about learning, the bit size with, plenty of flexibility, then definitely tech can help in that sense. Similarly, talent acquisition is one more space. Performance management is one more. Talent acquisition, more specifically, the ATS piece. That would be very, very significant, and tech can actually help us out in screens, in shortlist the right kind of profiles, and then keeping a track of how and what they have been doing in the past. And third thing is, of course, your HRMS tools that would also come in handy. So technology can actually help us out. Engagement is one more space. AI-enabled chatbots. You don't need to do your mood surveys any longer with those 40 questions written on a hard copy. So that you can do it instantaneously, taking help of certain chatbots, which is, I'm sure, already happening. So these are some of the people processes where I see tech gaining even much more prominence.
Next question is from, we are taking from Rohit. Dr. Anil, throwing this one at you. What do you think about campus hiring? What is your advice to fresh MBAs who are starting their new careers? What kind of learning they must have? Are you thinking more skill? Are you thinking more skill plus education? Are you thinking more practical experience? What is the right kind of person you are trying to hire if the person is a fresh MBA, he or she?
Yeah, I think already Nidhi has touched upon this topic, but broadly, let me try and answer it this way. If you look at the future competencies post-COVID, what are the significant competencies people or recruiters would really look for? From that scheme of things, your adaptability would be very, very important. Agility would be very, very important. My ability to learn would be also quite significant. My being data literate, do I understand digital? That would also be very, very important. And if I am stuck up, then do I have the ability to pull the strings and make things happen? So what I mean, in other words, is, my network directedness is very, very important. So these are some of the competencies definitely recruiters would be expecting the new bunch of potential colleagues to possess. And specifically, if somebody is exploring an internship opportunity, the objective of looking for an internship is also very, very important. Is it for networking? Is it for learning? Is it for showcasing who I am as an individual, and hence enhance my employability? Or is it for learn and also earn while working? These are some of the things that would decide how the future is going to be for budding managers, for people exploring internship opportunities.
Thank you, Dr. Anil. We have one more question for you, Nidhi. A question is from Mr. Navdeep Virdi. He has a very pointed question. He says that Nidhi has spent a long time in Adobe, and he has also spent a lot of time in one organization. So his question is, so how do talent acquisition teams look at people who have, in 10 years, they have worked in 3 different places, or in 14 years, they have worked in one place across maybe sales and marketing, across maybe product marketing. And how do, you make yourself stand above the above candidates?
Thanks, Navdeep, for this question. This often crosses my mind as well. Don't worry, that does cross when you're thinking about, how am I being viewed in the market? How's everyone viewing? But we have the fortune to sit on the other end with the talent acquisition team. So kind of, that demystifies it. And for me personally, I feel it depends on the role. And it again is the candidature you bring to the table. Again, talking personally, I have changed 7 roles. So when I portray my candidature, it's not just about the 10 years of Adobe that I have worked with. It's about the width of experience I have gained here. And that's what you do if you had changed certain companies. So I think it's about how you present your candidature, what that role is looking for. There's never a one size fit all. I always say that. So when you're looking for a role, looking for an opportunity, you need to understand what is it that, connects with you. Often one question that does cross talent acquisition mind or a recruiter's mind is, will you fit to a new culture, because you've kind of become the culture of that organization. And that's where again your adaptability and learnability comes in handy. And more often than not, if you've been in an organization for 10 years, I'm hoping it's because of great performance that you've been there. That culture speaks to your values. So it's the next organization you'd be willing to join, you'd be looking for similar set of values, because that's something that sticks to you. So that's where you're able to portray yourself. So in summary, there's nothing wrong in having a varied experience or one experience with one company. It's about what is the width you've gained, what experience, how you're portraying it, and how are you customizing your candidature when you're applying for that job or speaking to someone about the new role that you are aspiring for.
Thank you, Nidhi. I think Navdeep has got a good answer. Navdeep, if you are satisfied, please do write in the chat, and we'll pass that on to Nidhi. Obviously, we are running out of time. In fact, we have already exceeded time. So we'll not be able to take a lot of these questions, but we will try and pass it on to our speakers, take their views, and post maybe on our Twitter account, FMS India account. That is something we will try and do, or we'll find out other mechanisms to reach out to you. Dr. Mishra, if you allow, we can take one more question. Is that okay?
Sure, that's fine.
Thank you. Question is from Jitendra Kumar Pathak. And today, the Finance Minister, Honorable Finance Minister, has made an announcement that top 100 universities will be allowed to start online courses. How do you think this will impact job landscape? How do you think this will impact the quality of available manpower? Because in India, there is less quality available for some of the roles. And how do you think this will impact the whole landscape of job market?
I think everybody has started realizing this is going to be the new normal. And the best example that comes to my mind is I've seen my daughter who is in 5th standard. The entire school, the primary education has come online. And of course, it comes with a lot of struggle, because the teaching community probably in schools, they never thought this is going to be this is what is in store for them. So there would be few initial hiccups, specifically in terms of understanding technology, in terms of getting geared to cater to this kind of a need. But over a period of time, I'm very sure that everybody would get on to this, and they would learn those skills very, very faster. Purely from job market standpoint, whether it is online course or it is something a regular course you go and physically there is a teacher who teaches you, hardly it matters. And what has been your net learning, and what is that you bring onto the table in terms of your competences, in terms of if there is a problem, how would you actually resolve that? Till the time you are in a position to articulate it well, showcase your talent, and and come with right set of attitude, then definitely there would not be any dearth of jobs. So I always believe that talent would ultimately win, irrespective of whether there is a fight, technology, or is here to stay, and talent will win.
I'll take the last question in that case, and the question is from Professor Venkat Raman, and I am giving it to both of you. So I'll want input from both of you on this one. Question in terms of work from home and social distancing. What will be the impact on organization culture? The reason is we obviously can't be, sitting around gossiping. We can't be having coffee table conversations. We can't be having a lot of meeting room conversations. So obviously this will, and even if you're going to offices, you'll be wearing masks, so your facial expressions can't be seen. What is your take on this? How organizations will cope up with this? How they will adapt to this? And what will it lead for employee and team engagement? So either of you can pick it up first, and then would love to know the opinion of the other one.
So since this is a question from Dr. Venkat Raman, let me try, provided that's fine with Nidhi. So
fine with that.
Thank you. So normally when you talk about organization culture, one model comes to my mind, which Dr. Uday Parekh and TV Rao, they have formulated. It talks about octapace. It talks about openness, confrontation, trust, authenticity, proactiveness, autonomy, collaboration, and experimentation. If you have a strong performance-driven culture, if the performance management system is strong, it doesn't matter whether you are operating from home or you are operating from office. So long as you know what you are expected to drive, and you are in a better position to articulate and show documentation around this, that you have actually moved the needle. Yeah. And doing it in a transparent, collaborative, and much more experimenting method would be added advantage. And that's how precisely the cultures are going to evolve. In a meritocratic setup, who said what is not important? Your levels are not important. Whether you are operating from home or you are operating from office is not important. What is important is, am I in a better position to articulate and achieve whatever I have committed? If I can establish that link, end of the day, I am a winner. I don't know if I have answered Dr. Venkatraman's question, but that's my best bet.
Nidhi,
I just add probably Dr. Mishra there, that definitely takes care of the job aspect of it and, connectedness to my work and my role. The human connectedness is another thing that I would say, with these new norms, I feel as leaders and as employees, we'd have to take that additional extra step to connect more often, create some virtual platforms to speak to each other, check in on each other, and, make sure that, during meetings, we are open to the fact that, it's okay if somebody can attend, cannot attend. There are some flexibilities we'll have to offer. And in terms of exposing to the culture and the core values of the organization, companies are again strengthening their onboarding programs, their induction programs, making sure new people have buddies or mentors in the organization. Because when you join a new organization, you're bombarded with a plethora of information, slangs, and whatnot. And it takes a while to adapt to that culture or be a part of that. And that's where you need these conversations, informal chats. So that's where I feel buddies are important. Collaboration tools and technology like Slack, Teams, chatbots, whatever is being used in whichever organization becomes very key. And drawing the boundaries, that's again another important thing, in respecting that for each other. It goes a long way in setting the right culture. Trust will be a key element, because when you're working remotely, you need to have the feeling that you're being trusted by your leaders, and your leaders need to empower you and trust you in doing your work. And that's where then you start feeling connected to culture and the organization.
Sure. And very quick.
Thank you, Dr. Anil. Please go ahead.
In the entire culture transformation journey, I believe fundamentally there are three things very, very important. Number one, whether people are aware of the new norms. So what do we need to do as HR fraternity to create more awareness? Number two, people need to internalize that, these are the new norms. Otherwise, no matter to what extent you try and create awareness, if what's in it for me is on top of everybody's agenda. Third thing, if people have internalized, are they making an effort to live those new norms? Do they demonstrate those behaviors at workplace or at home? That would also be very, very significant in strengthening or building a new culture.
No, thank you, Dr. Anil. Thank you, Nidhi, for staying much beyond the expected time. Handing it over to Singla, sir. Singla, sir, you may take over now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zuhaib. Once again, wonderful job. Thank you, Dr. Venkat, for joining us. It was nice to have questions coming from you. And I could see that both my speakers had difficulty in answering the questions of professors. So professor is a professor, right? Friends, everything will move to virtual. Stop is something which I learned for the first time. Deferment of the reviews, annual reviews. Thank God we don't have many reviews on teaching. HR should be treated as an integral part of the business and not an adjunct. Mental well-being of people is going to be important. Companies will be more open to hire talent wherever it is. Organizations need talent, and talent will always need organizations. Adaptability, agility, being digital, and learnability are going to be the hallmarks of talent anywhere. Thank you very much, Dr. Anil Misra. Thank you very much, Nidhi, for educating us on the intricacies of HR function, particularly post-COVID-19. We are grateful to both of you for joining back with us. And it has been wonderful listening to both of you and, observing you fielding difficult questions from many of our audiences. Zuhaib, once again, thanks a lot for doing such a wonderful job. Nitin and Dheeraj for putting together this great show. Ria, we are particularly grateful to you for providing us this kind of support. We are grateful to our faculty members, Dr. Venkat and other faculty colleagues who joined this particular webinar, and all the participants for taking our time and taking so much of interest in this particular webinar. We hope that it has been able to deliver the message which we thought should be delivered related to HR in the post-COVID-19 period. Thanks again, and we welcome you back to FMS whenever you get time to visit us and talk to the students. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Singla, Nidhi, Zuhaib, Nitin, Dheeraj. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having us here.
Thank you.
Long live FMS. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you to all the participants.
Please stay safe. Take care.
Yeah.